The Ashford Traditional Spinning Wheel has been the workhorse of the hand spinning community since the 1940s. And if you are a new hand spinner, there's a really good chance that it's going to be the wheel that you're going to learn to spin on. So in this video, I'm going to give you an anatomy of the Ashford Traditional using my 1980s Ashford wheel to show you what all the parts are called, what they do and how they relate to each other. If you're new here, my name is Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter and newbie weaver, and you're very welcome to my echoey conservatory in my home in West Wales. This is Geraldine. She is my mid-1980s Ashford Traditional. I bought her second hand. She was a little bit dinged up when I got her, but she was basically in really good working order. Somebody had put quite a lot of sort of very sticky varnish on bits, and I have slowly sort of worked away at actually kind of reducing that, but it didn't really affect her hugely. I was able to get her working very quickly, and I did that thing that you must never do, and that's I bought it on eBay. Really try and buy a used spinning wheel from an experienced hand spinner. I didn't have access to that at the time. I bought it on eBay. I was lucky. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the alphabet with A, and A in a spinning wheel is for axle, and the axle is in the centre there, and you can't really see it, but it's very important that you haven't got too much lateral movement on your axle, and that's really key to a good spinning wheel, and particularly a good second-hand spinning wheel. So when you're looking at them, just make sure that she's running really nice and smoothly and you haven't got a huge amount of wobble on the wheel. I mean, there's a little bit of wobble because this is quite an old wheel, but really not enough that I'm worried about it. B is for bobbin, and ideally you want 4 bobbins. I mean, lots of people have lots of other numbers of bobbins, but I've always tried to stick to 4, otherwise I just end up with lots of random bits of spinning on random bobbins and they never get used properly. Anyway, so bobbin, and we'll just have a look and see where the bobbin goes. There we are, that's where the bobbin sits, in here. The next B is for break, and the break goes over the end of the bobbin and just stops the bobbin from spinning freely. And this is immensely important in spinning. Mastering the amount of tension that you need on this break band is going to be one of the most important things on your spinning journey. So C is for crank, and that goes into the axle and basically drives the spinning wheel. D is for drive wheel and drive belt. Now I have a poly drive belt on this. An Ashford Traditional would have originally come with either a linen or a cotton band. My personal preference is to spin with a poly band, but that's absolutely something you're going to discover on your journey as to which you prefer. And the drive wheel, let's just engage it, and the drive band are what is going to help you spin. This really is the key to the wheel. So our next part is F for flyer, and this is where your bobbin sits, and you have hooks along here to help you move your yarn along as you're spinning, and it has your whorls on the end and the orifice there. And I'm just going to show you something. I cannot tell you the number of times I have put my bobbin on that way, and you know what? It doesn't work that way. Your bobbin goes on that way, so your large wheel on your bobbin is on the open end and the small wheel is on the closed end. And trust me, you'll be thinking, why is my wheel not working? And 9 times out of 10, you'll have put your bobbin on backwards. So we're just going to put the flyer back in place. And it just sits there. So our next part is F for footman. And this is the footman. And it goes from the treadle up to the crank. And H is for hub. And this is the hub and the spokes come off this. So next we're going to look at these uprights. And you've got 2 of these and they are called Maidens. And they move slightly. And they hold the flyer. So the next M is for the mother of all. And she's probably a bit dusty under there. And using this knob here, you can adjust the distance between your wheel and the flyer by going up and down. But it's only a very small adjustment that you generally need to make. But this whole kind of thing, this is the mother of all. So the next on the alphabet is O for orifice. We've already talked about that, and that is the orifice is on your flyer, and you can get different sizes, different diameters, and depending on what you want to spin, a wider diameter for fatter yarn, and you can get different variations of a flyer that will have different sizes on your orifice. So S in the alphabet is for Saxony, and this layout is called a Saxony layout, and we mean that the drive wheel is horizontal to the flyer. The other way you can get the layout is what's known as castle when it's vertical. So T is for treadle, and that's what we use to make the drive wheel go round. Treadling. And the treadle is connected to the footman, which goes up to the crank and drives the wheel. So next off, we've got our tension knob. And this is a very simple device. And Ashford Traditional has Scotch tension, and this means that the brake, and we've looked at the brake band, is braking on the bobbin. There are other forms, but we're just going to stick with that because that's what an Ashford Traditional has. The last thing we're going to talk about is Whorls. And there's 2 grooves there. I'm going to put it back on the flyer. These are very, very important. Now, why I say the Whorls are so important, because this is the gearing system of the spinning wheel. Your ratios, and Whorls are expressed in ratios, the ratio on your whirl will directly impact the thickness of the yarn that you're spinning. So if I put this up, I'm putting my drive band on the bigger whirl, then I would be able to spin quite easily thicker yarn. Then if I wanted a thinner yarn, I would put it down on the smaller whirl. And when we talk about ratios, the ratio is the number of times that the drive band turns in relationship to the number of times the whirl goes round. So if I just change the shot, I'll show you what I mean. So I have a little bit of yarn tied on here, and if I rotate the drive wheel around and I get my bit of yarn at the top there, that's 1 rotation. And because this is simple gearing, So I'm just tying on a little bit of yarn here so we can count how many times this rotates in proportion to that. So let's just kind of do some jiggery pokery. Okay, so we've got the top of there and the top of there. So this is going to go round once and we'll see how many times this goes round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just about a half. It's about 6.5. So you can do that with all of your whorls and just count how many times. And that's not necessarily an important figure in itself, but what's important is that if you want to get repeatable yarns, you know which whorl you were spinning on, so that you can express it as, okay, I was spinning on my whorl that is 6.5 to 1 or 14 to 1 or whatever it is. And when you buy a second-hand wheel, I think it's a really good practice just to find out what ratios you've got on your flyer. So I can't actually remember, but I think this is about 6, it's either 14 to 1 or 16 to 1. I forget. Anyway, so there you go. So I hope you found that useful. Any questions, let me know in the comments below. I also write a newsletter which goes out once a week on a Thursday, which is all about the fibre arts and hand spinning. So I will leave a link in the description below. And if you are a new hand spinner, I would love to know if there is anything that you'd like me to cover in particular, which I will be very happy to do and add it on to the programme of videos that I've got scheduled over the next few months. So until next time, may your needles be swift and your yarns be soft.